Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Today let's talk about pinion seals. I've taken the yoke out of this 8 3/4 housing, but if you look at it, down here it's all dark and a little bit wet. Basically you've got a bunch of gear oil mixed with dirt, and it's all on the lower half. Seems to be fairly dry up above. What this tends to indicate, especially since it's up here on the nose, is that this seal has been leaking. This is real common on any kind of a rear end or front end on a four-wheel drive. So let's go take a look at the yoke I pulled out of this. When you replace the seal on the input of a differential, you always want to take a look at the yoke. So this is the one that came out of the one that's over there on the floor. If you look, there's this line right here, and there's another one right here. There's two fairly deep grooves. I mean, I can definitely catch my fingernail on them. They're pretty horrendous. What happens is that seal that sits right here, that it's in that housing, it gets old and hard, and the lips on that seal grind into, basically wear a groove into this yoke shaft, right? So the sealing surface gets worn, and as it gets smaller and the seal gets harder, it allows gear oil to leak past the seal, and then it comes out and makes a mess all over everything. Here's one out of another rear end. This is actually only a 10 spline, but you can see this one's in much better shape. This one does not have any grooves on it. So what do we do if we've got this kind of a problem? We've got really three options. One, the easiest, is to just buy a new yoke. A new one of these is about $130. Quite a bit for a leak, but it's obviously an option. Now, you may have something old that you don't have access to a new one. I don't know, maybe something from the 30s or whatever that they don't make anymore. Or if you want, you could probably just, even on something like this, it could be repaired. Now, this doesn't have a super high rate of rotational speed, and it's not like a bearing journal. So the reality is, you could weld this up. Obviously, you could spray weld it if you have that kind of equipment, but I think you could either TIG or MIG this up and then put it in a 4-jaw chuck in a lathe and turn it back out. I think it would be just fine. It's a fair bit of work to do the setup, and you'd have to have all of the tools to do that. Significantly more than the $130 to just buy a new one. Now the third option is often called a ready sleeve or a speedy sleeve or a repair sleeve, something along those lines. Basically, you get a sleeve and an installer cup. This sleeve, you can see, is really, really thin. It's probably, I don't know, maybe 1/1000th, maybe 2. Quite thin anyway. It goes right on here. And then we use this installer to drive it down over all of this. And then this ends up sitting down on here, and it provides a brand new surface for that. They typically come with the sleeve and an installer. I like to put Loctite Red on it before I put it down, just to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. Now again, this is pretty common on a yoke, but another place you see this is on harmonic balancers, where they go through the timing cover. In fact, here's a harmonic balancer that I've got that was laying on the floor out of a 360, and you can see it's actually already been sleeved. So this is what they look like installed, and again, it's a real common thing. The seal on the timing cover just wears a groove in these, and then they'll start to leak. In fact, if it's leaking here, that's almost always what it's from. First, make sure this is nice and clean. Next, I'm going to use some Loctite Red on the inside of this. Put it on the journal. Try to get it fairly straight. You could put this in the freezer to make it shrink a little bit. And I put this on here, Then I'm going to use a dead blow hammer. So drive it until it bottoms out against the yoke. Alright, and that's all there is to repairing this. Now there is this little flange here. In some cases you can take that off. In this case I don't think it's going to be a problem. I might take a hammer and tap it over, but it's sitting up against a shoulder on the yoke itself, so I don't think it's going to even be easy to get at. If you're on the harmonic balancer, you notice that it's a straight shaft past it, so you want to pull that off. Basically, you want to get this where that seal rides. If you do remove this, make sure you take any burrs or anything off. Otherwise, this thing's ready to go. Thanks for watching.